this world. Now the roof seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I'm one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, and with me as ever is my partner in crime, Santokie Nagilendran. Santokie, how you doing?
Yeah, Mash, all good. And it's crunch time now in the World Cup. We're recording this a day before West Indies take on Afghanistan in their last group stage game. However, as we know, that's a dead rubber, nothing really on the line, because we know West Indies group for the Super 8, Group 2 of the Super 8 has been confirmed. We play 3 games over the course of, 5 days, I think. England getting through by the barest of margins. They were about 10 minutes away from being eliminated by rain. However, they snuck through. Sweet Caroline, Barmy Army. It's going to be England versus the West Indies in St. Lucia on Wednesday, followed by Friday against USA and then Sunday against South Africa. So hopefully, West Indies can come through that Super 8 group and make it to that big semi-final stage. Now, we're here, obviously, to preview what do we think the side is going to look like? What do we think about the opposition? And anything really relating to the Super 8. So, Mash, it's an exciting time, I know we do a few cuss-outs here and there, but generally it's an exciting time to be a West Indies fan. It's been a while since we've been in this latter stage of a World Cup.
Yeah, people might forget, but since 2016, we've been down horrendous in all formats in any world global competition. We were horrible in the 2018 World Cup. Sorry, 2017 Champions Trophy, we didn't even qualify. 2018 World Cup qualifiers, we shouldn't have got through them. 2019 World Cup, we won 2 games. 2021 T20 World Cup, we won 1 game. 2022 T20 World Cup, we didn't even qualify.
Yeah.
And so it's been a long time, Santokie. People forget it's genuinely been a long time since we can look at a West Indian team in a white ball format and say, yeah, we're I'm going to say, we're contenders. We could get to the latter stages. There's something about us. I don't know where obviously different West Indian different elements of the West Indian fan base will have different points of view about whether just competing in the Super 8s will be deemed a success, or whether now that USA are one of the 4 teams in our group, that we should get through the Super 8s into the semi-finals, or whether the semi-finals is the only realistic metric of success. And obviously then you have the final beyond that as well. But what I will say is this, ultimately, Santokie, if you had said to any West Indian supporter that we'll go into the final group game already assured of qualification, and we'll go into the Super 8s knowing that one of the teams in the Super 8s is USA, how do I phrase it? They couldn't ask for a better scenario. Is all I'm going to say. The only thing better they could have got from this realistically is if England had fluffed the lines and Scotland had somehow made it through instead of them. But realistically speaking, knowing that we have a Super 8 group of USA, England and South Africa, they can't ask for much better than that in terms of being able to get to the semis.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the Super 8, generally 2 wins in that Super 8 stage will take you through to the semi-finals. So I know some people might say, USA are a threat, and that's true. USA made it to the Super 8s for a reason. However, they've not played in the Caribbean yet. All of their games have been in the USA. And the fact they're an associate side, you'd expect West Indies, based on the form and momentum we've got, to beat USA. So if you're looking at getting 1 win out of England or South Africa, they're both sides we've beaten in bilateral series in recent months. So confidence should be high. And I think, Mash, this is a credit, because if you think about, you touched on the 2022 World Cup when we got eliminated from the preliminaries with 1 win. against Zimbabwe? One win against Zimbabwe in the
Yeah, yeah.
preliminaries 2022. Generally, though, the core of the squad has been the same. Obviously, now we've got Russell and Shafane Rutherford are the two sort of new additions, but generally the rest of the squad has been the same. The main change has obviously been Darren Sammy taking over as head coach. So would you say the performances in this World Cup are also a testament to the galvanizing effect Sammy's had on this side?
Yeah, and I think what points to it more than anything else is you simply have to look at the New Zealand game. For what, probably half, if not more than half of the New Zealand innings when they were chasing, Sammy was on the boundary chatting to Rodman. It seemed like every single ball, more or less, or every over, certainly, he was chatting to Rodman. He was almost literally walking the team through what needed to happen. So, I mean, the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day, right? Sammy took over after that South Africa series, and since then we've beaten India. People don't like it when I say it, Santokie, but we have to put the caveat in, and I'll explain why later in the episode. We beat a weakened India. We beat a weakened England. I am not counting South Africa away, because people often say South Africa away, but that actually wasn't under Sammy. That was Andre Coley, and a lot of people forget that. They attach that to Sammy, but Andre Coley was actually in charge for that game. So let's just focus on Sammy's reign. Beaten India, beaten England, lost 2-1 in Australia, but won a game, if that, I guess, matters in Australian conditions. Beat South Africa, weakened prior to the start of the tournament, and we've beaten everybody thus far in this tournament. So the momentum is there. The galvanizing effect is there. There is certainly, you only have to look on the socials and the fan base in general, there is certainly some kind of galvanized effect that has taken place in the Caribbean, where everybody, including ourselves, is buying into the we ready, like we're up, we're moving, we can compete, we've got a chance here. But Santokie, it wouldn't be the Caribbean Cricket Podcast if we weren't balanced. Like, when I've always said to people who listen to this show, we are not here to be cheerleaders. We're not called the Caribbean Cricket Cheerleading Podcast. We're not here to be cheerleaders. We're here to chop things up and look at everything from every point of view. I'm willing to accept, Santokie, that we will beat USA. I've said it from day one. USA are no good. We'll beat them. We're going to beat them. I'm not even doubting that. I think if we write South Africa and England off, we write them off at our peril, is what I'm saying. And that's why I put that kind of asterisk about weakened in there. If people are going to say that West Indies have momentum behind them, Santokie, don't South Africa have momentum then? Because there's an argument to say, let's focus on South Africa first. There is an argument to say that South Africa had the hardest group out of all of the groups of the World Cup. Netherlands, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. In terms of, people say, oh, Mash, but there's no real big side in there. But there's teams all of a kind of similar kind of nature who technically could all have taken W's off each other. And those games were largely played on that down bad New York pitch. South Africa got through that group winning every single game. They were pushed hard in every single game, and they found a way to win. So, Santokie, the question I put to you is this. If we're saying that West Indies winning all our games is momentum, what? So it's not momentum for South Africa as well then? Where does momentum start and stop?
Yeah, I think definitely South Africa will have momentum. The one hope for West Indies is, as you said, they played in some down bad pitches. Their last game was in St. Vincent, however. But if you look generally, their highest score in the 4 games has been 115. So they haven't been able to put together a big score yet. And that could play into West Indies' hands. We know West Indies can boast big totals. So I think whilst we have to admit South Africa have the momentum, 4 wins in 4, in as you said, a tough World Cup group. At the same time, if I'm a West Indies player, and I'm analysing, or even Sammy, I'm analysing the South Africans, there's not too much to fear. I wouldn't say they're a side where you're thinking, oh, they could dominate us. I think West Indies will be confident in that one. The one thing with South Africa is the key is their bowling. They've obviously got Nokia, Rabada, Maharaj as the spinner. And we do know, even though they haven't posted a big total, we do know that they have the potential when you've got David Miller, Heinrich Klaassen. So they have that explosive nature within them. But I would say, Mash, West Indies, again, should be slight favourites for that tie. I would say we both got momentum, but the home conditions and also just the fact that South Africa haven't got experience yet in these conditions so far in the tournament or putting a big total together. I mean, I would put West Indies as slight favourites. However, also the other moot point is the scheduling, Mash. The fact that we play
I was
South
just about
Africa,
to say that to you. Yeah.
we play South Africa on a Sunday. So if we beat, best case scenario, if we beat England and then USA, essentially the South Africa game almost becomes a dead rubber unless we're playing for some sort of run rates. But as I said, I think generally 2 wins in the Super 8 should get you through to the semi-finals. So the scheduling of that also kind of favours West Indies. We play them last. I would say of the 3 ties, I'm completely with you as well. I think we should beat USA. I'm not even willing to debate, could USA do it?
No, not debating. We're beating USA.
Yeah, we're beating USA. There's obviously always, as with any sporting contest, especially T20, USA have the potential to cause a massive shock and upset, but I think that's very, very unlikely. I think West Indies have the capabilities, more than enough capabilities to beat USA. So assuming we beat USA...
No, hold on, stop for a second. What if USA did beat us?
Your clip's going viral when you say it. No, but this is what I mean.
What if they did, though?
Yeah, because if you... that's what I'm saying. USA have got to the Super 8s for a reason. They beat Pakistan. That in itself was an epic match. They beat Canada as well, who are a tricky side to beat. So USA have the potential. In T20 cricket, the margins are fine. I think you've said it on previous podcasts. If 1 or 2 players have the game of their lives, then that's it. The game's taken away from you. So there's always that potential for USA to do it. However, I think if we're analysing things logically, in all sectors of the match, in all sort of skill areas, West Indies should win. They're the superior side. But that's sports. You can never say never. So USA have a chance, but I'd say West Indies have a massive, massive chance. So assuming we get the win against USA, my big concern, Mash, is England. Now, obviously, England...
Right, I was about to say, you're saying this, but then England are the team we actually play first.
Yeah, England. So this is the thing. England, defending champions, that in itself is a reason. And also, Mash, I think the fact that they were on the verge of elimination, I'm 100% sure yesterday they would have thought they were eliminated. When the rain was pouring down and there was only 30 minutes to go before cut-off time, they would have thought they're eliminated. So they've been given a lifeline. We know what happens in sports. When sides get a lifeline, England are going to play as if they've got nothing to lose in that first game. It's because they've got given that lifeline. We also know how destructive their batting is. They got Joffa Archer, Chris Jordan, Reece Topley. Phil Salt. Yeah. So
3 West Indians trying to come back and listen. The ancestors are watching.
I think for me, the campaign, the Super 8, or World Cup campaign, essentially lies on that first game against England. If we can get the win over England, then I think we'll qualify for the semi-finals. If we get taken apart by England, which is feasible because of the destructive capabilities they have, then it's going to be very, very sticky because suddenly that momentum factor is gone and we got 2 must-win games against USA and South Africa. So I'm not even looking too far ahead at USA and South Africa. For me, we got to beat England on Wednesday. That's the must-win game for me.
Yeah, so obviously, I presume South Africa start against USA, right? I haven't even seen the scheduling, but I presume they must start with USA. So assuming South Africa get the job done against USA, South Africa go into the next 2 games zone, they just need 1 more win.
Yeah.
And they're pretty much through to the semi-finals. To kind of echo your point, it means whoever, whether it's us or whether it's England, have to start well. You're basically under the pump if you do not get that opening win at the start of the Super 8s. All I will say is this about England. Everyone keeps going on and on about the fact that, we beat England in the game in the 5 T20 series, the 5-match T20 series just before Christmas, right? But I want to just remind people we won that series 3-2. We didn't win it 5-0. We won it 3-2. So I get when people say we won series and it's to be commended and obviously it's a great thing. But the nature of bilateral series, Santokie, is we can't just ignore the fact that England won 2 of them. Anything can happen on any given day. England, I think even the most optimistic of West Indian fans would concede that England have significant batting power, right? Obviously we do. But then here's the catch, Santokie. Bear in mind, we are recording this before the Afghanistan game, which we expect to see probably at least 2 or 3 changes, right? We must remember, Santokie, we still haven't actually clicked as a batting unit yet.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the 3 Super 8 games are in, where's that first one? It's in...
St. Lucia.
St. Lucia against England. Barbados against USA, and then Antigua against South Africa. Now, we are expecting, based on the World Cup so far, that those will be the 3 truest pitches in the World Cup in terms of maybe you can get full value for batting power. So it should suit the West Indians' strength, right? And our UPS in terms of 6s and 4s and so on and so forth. But I'm just concerned, and we'll see what happens in St. Lucia against Afghanistan. We still haven't come to the party as a batting unit. How much does that concern you, Santokie? Or do you think it'll just all click by the time the Super 8s come?
You know what? I don't even know if we will click, It might just be one of those campaigns where we're reliant on individual performances somewhere to get us through. If we are going to click, you'd imagine it be in that Afghanistan game with no pressure on the line. And also, again, another dynamic, people might come at me in the comments, but so far we played all our games in front of, home fans. St. Lucia on Wednesday against England, the Barmy Army is going to be in full flow. Sweet Caroline when Phil Salt's hitting those 4s and 6s. So West Indies will also have the other dynamic of not having the whole ground completely behind them as well. So that will add an interesting dynamic. But I think that Afghanistan is crucial in the context of the schedule because it allows us to get used to the pitch, adapt to the pitch, even though there's nothing on stake against Afghanistan. That will give us an advantage over England. England will just be flying into St. Lucia now from Antigua and they'll just have to get used to the conditions when the match is ready on Wednesday. We'll have this practice against Afghanistan. So in a weird way, we basically got to treat this Afghanistan game as if it's a World Cup warm-up match, essentially.
Right. So it's interesting that you said that because I was just about to say, if we're using the point that you're making, doesn't that mean that Sammy's got to maybe stick with what he thinks is the team against England then? Not completely, but if we're using the St. Lucian conditions to assess what we may or may not have to do versus England, how many of the starting 11 can you really afford to take out the firing line?
I think, based on the promos on social media, Johnson Charles is definitely playing. Him and Sammy been leading the line for St. Lucia to come out and support the fans. Listen, you can't deny Sammy's charisma, man, because even that video had me believing West Indies are going to win the World Cup, So,
listen, Sammy's even got me pumped.
Yeah. So I think you can't have the Sammy cricket ground, Johnson Charles stand and not have Johnson Charles come out to bat. So I think Johnson Charles is going to play. Even if it weren't in St. Lucia, I think they'll give him this final opportunity again. I wouldn't even say final. They'll give him another opportunity against Afghanistan. I think for me, Mash, there'll be 2 changes and they'll be purely down to workload and fitness management. I think Andre Russell will rest.
That would be a good move. Yeah,
I don't see why you'd risk playing Andre Russell. And I think they'll rest Alzari. Just because we've got 3 games in quick succession after this. I think Alzari's been our main sort of pacer. I think you rest him, maybe put in Obed or Shamar Joseph instead. I think those will be the 2 changes. They could, if they're looking at, they could bring in Hetmeyer for a batter just to add in another face. But I think definitely Dre Russ and Alzari will sit out tomorrow against Afghanistan because it wouldn't make sense when you got 4 games in the space of 6 days to play them both when they've had injury issues in the past. And we know what they can do. There's no need to sort of prove themselves against Afghanistan.
That's 2 really good calls, Now, there'll be people who get in the comments below and say, you two English boys don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. Now, here's the thing. If our batting unit had fired by now, I would have said, oh, yeah, well, you can tell this man to rest. But actually, a lot of people haven't really got going. King's not hit a statement innings. Charles, some will call the 44 from 42 some kind of statement. He's not really hit a statement innings. Puran hasn't. Rovman hasn't. What's that? That's your top 5. That's your top 4. Who am I missing? Who's number 5? Who am I missing?
Chase Rutherford.
Oh, Chase. Sorry.
Yeah.
So no, Chase hit that one against PNG. In fairness.
Yeah.
So they may well be looking at their top 5, 6, probably top 4, and thinking, well, hold on a minute. None of you have really got going properly yet. So maybe they'll drop Chase. And just to give Hope a try, just if you see what I mean. But I don't see how else they fit Hope and Hetmeyer in when the batting unit hasn't really got going. Individuals have got going. Some individuals have. But as a unit, there's more who haven't got going than have got going, if that makes sense. So I'm not sure that it's as simple as everyone just saying, 4 people in, 4 people out. Particularly, like you say, Santokie, the games are so quick, the turnaround. But really and truly, you have to count the Afghanistan games a quick turnaround as well, Santokie, because effectively we've got what? The Afghanistan game on Monday night, the England game on
Wednesday night,
the USA game on Friday night, and then the South Africa game on Sunday night. So what? 4 games in a week?
In 6 days, yeah.
4 games in 6 days. So I hear everyone, but Santokie, workload is workload, and you have to be an elite side to turn around 4 wins in 6 days. I hope we can do it, and obviously there'll be the same kind of conditions for England, South Africa, and USA. And I think what I would say, in terms of so many games in quick succession regarding the Super 8s and whatever, is that whoever gets through to the semi-final will definitely deserve it, having to perform well in such quick succession.
Yeah, I guess the only advantage the sides will have is South Africa. When did they last play? Saturday, so they'll have a slight rest in between.
And USA's game got rained out, so
USA's had a week rest, over a week's rest. England again would have played their last game Saturday, so they'll have about 4 days. So West Indies, just because of the quirk of scheduling, have to face the shortest turnaround between games. But just going back to the squad selection match, so let's say we brought Hope in. That's a very realistic shout. Bearing in mind there's been calls for him to be in the side. He's been on the fringes of the 11, been in the 11 for the past few months before the World Cup. What would be a good performance for Hope? Let's say Hope comes out and hits 30 off 18. He's never going to come out realistically and blast a big score. If he did that and he was not out in a winning total against Afghanistan, where does that leave Hope? Is that an innings where you say, hold on, he's doing a shy Hope role, we bring him into the 11, or is it a case of he's playing against Afghanistan, no matter what he does, he's not going to be in that 11 on Wednesday against England?
I'm going to put it like this. You and I have both watched down bad England win 1-0 versus Serbia, right? By the end of England's group, they will have already qualified. Their second game, I think, is maybe against Denmark. Maybe it's against Slovenia. Denmark, maybe. Yeah, Denmark, you're right. Let's say by the time they play Slovenia, which is their last game in that group, they've already qualified, right? You would assume that they may say to someone like Harry Kane, my guy, take a rest. Ivan Toney, come in. You're going to play up front, or Watkins, whichever one. You're going to play up front against Slovenia. Let's say England win that 3-0, Toney or Watkins bands a hat-trick. Kane's still coming back in regardless. Now, the question that people have to ask themselves is, if Hope comes in for Chase, for example, just say, argument's sake, rather than Johnson Charles, you're not going to just let Hope stay just because he had a good innings. Chase is likely to come back in. So it's a massive roundabout analogy to basically say that some players are first choice players no matter what, and it doesn't really matter what the understudy does if that player is so integral to the kind of shape of the team. So what people for me have to ask themselves, and I guess I'm asking you, Santokie, is which of the current first 11 isn't first choice? Do you get where I'm coming from? Who legitimately could you look at in that first 11 of the first 3 games thus far and say, you aren't a nailed-on starter 9 times or 9.5 times out of 10?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, as a Tottenham Hotspur fan, I can't believe you've basically called Ruston Chase the Harry Kane of West Indies.
Yeah, but Ruston Chase is... I was looking at you smiling when I was making the analogy. And I was like, nah, Santokie, let me land this one.
all-time goal scorer for England, Harry Kane, man said Ruston Chase,
Listen, Chase is Thanos out here. It was the apt one to use.
Yeah, no, but no, I think that's a fair analogy in terms of the context of the Afghanistan and the meaning behind it. I don't think anyone from the 11 is at risk of being dropped out. I know there's talk about Johnson Charles. Even then, I can't see Johnson Charles getting dropped just because we've been winning the games and it's a settled team. And a lot of the times, that camaraderie and the cohesion of the 11 working together, coaches just want to stick with it if you're winning. You don't want to change it for fear that suddenly you make 1 or 2 changes and then your momentum goes. So I think we'll see the same 11 against England. And like you said, I think the game against Afghanistan, 2, I think maybe at most 3 changes, because like you rightly said, a lot of our top order haven't really faced that many balls. They've not had much time out in the middle. So it's not as if they're going to be fatigued. So I think we'll see 2 to 3 changes. And if Hope does come in, I think it will just be game time. I don't think he'll be under the illusions or pretense that he has a chance of making 11 against England. Now, we say that, obviously, if the man hits a century, then his name's never really going to... Yeah.
Okay, if it was a century, then we have to have serious conversations.
Yeah, listen. So in that weird regard, there is a small sort of importance to the Afghanistan game, but I think if Hope just plays a standard I'm saying like anything 30 or under, I don't think we're going to see any changes. I think Sammy will back Charles. However, again, Mash, if Charles comes out and makes a golden duck, that again throws in the question. So there are small question marks. I just think unless things go badly wrong for Johnson Charles against Afghanistan or amazingly right for Shai Hope, I think generally that same 11 we'll see that we saw for the tournament so far will play against England.
Do you know what's interesting though? England against Namibia, they made 2 changes. I think Curran and I can't even remember, but they made 2 changes, right? And I remember thinking at the time, England are picking horses for courses. Where they think a player suits a particular deck, they're willing to make those changes. They haven't got their kind of banker, this is the 11, and they're playing no matter what as the starting 11. So it's just interesting to me. We seem to be stuck on this is our 11. It doesn't look like at this moment in time that we're going horses for courses. And I guess the other thing to just say is once you get to the Super 8s, can you even afford to go horses for courses? Because now it literally is, well, boy, the semi-finals are on the line.
Yeah, I think also the difference might be because the England game, the toss was made after it became a 10-over game. So they kind of they backed their bowlers. And also with England, you got someone like Sam Curran who's being picked as a bowler, wicket-taking bowler. He can also bat as well. He's a quality batter. I think England's got so much depth in T20 cricket. There's no one who's purely a bowler. They can all bat. Like from 1 to 11, they could all bang sixes. So I think England's got that depth, which is why they're world champions. West Indies aren't in that position. We don't have the same depth. I mean, our top order's been struggling to get runs, let alone the tail end and the latter stages of the batting order. So I think England just have more depth, so they can afford to do it. However, like I said, I just think Sammy he probably don't want to change anything. I think the Johnson Charles video was also timed as well because Johnson Charles has been under pressure. That video was just to say, listen, this is still a main guy in the side. This is Johnson Charles. Don't forget the guy's got a stand named after him at St. Lucia. He's a big time player. That's it. Come and see it. So that was I took that video as almost a public vote of confidence for Sammy and Johnson Charles.
Yeah, I reckon so. Because why?
Because you could do the video just Darren Sammy, like come to the Darren Sammy Cricket Stadium. There was no need to have Johnson Charles in it if you didn't want him. So the fact they brought him out, once you bring him out in a promo video to encourage people to buy tickets, you have to play the man because then people can demand refunds if they buy it because of him and he's not playing, bro.
Well, false advertising. You know what? You have to. I want to assume that promo vid was done before the World Cup even started, but I'm not sure.
No, it wasn't. Listen, they cooked that together over the weekend.
Sammy said, "Do you know what?" Sammy said, "Listen, I seen them CCP boys." Talking enough crud. Let me put out the promo quick time to galvanize everyone behind Johnson Charles. Listen, ultimately though, Santokie, I mean, I'm looking at the time. I think we've spoken enough on this one. We'll get Afghanistan out the way. We may or may not review that game. And then the Super 8s are pretty much on the way. Last question I'll just give to you. And obviously we will discuss it after that game as well. If we were to lose against England, do you still see us making the Super 8s regardless? Does it really? Obviously, there's pressure because then you have to win against USA and South Africa. But yeah, do something just tells me. Boy, I don't even. Do you know what? Actually, don't even answer that question, Santokie. Let's just see what we do against England, and let's assess it. Let's assess it after that, because my gut instinct tells me that South Africa game is probably going to end up being winner takes all.
Yeah.
My gut feeling is just that game is going to end up, for whatever reason, I'm just like, it feels like it's going to be winner takes all. Go on.
I was going to say, let's say, all right, if South Africa and us, we both beat USA, but then we both lose to England, then yeah, it's essentially a shootout on Sunday, West Indies against South Africa. I think, I'll try to answer your question. I think if we do lose to England on Wednesday, I just think it swings the momentum from, at the moment, I would say we're favourites to get out of the Super 8s, just based on all sort of factors. It swings it between, it's an uphill challenge now if we lose to England to kind of get through, just because of the scheduling. If South Africa do beat USA, South Africa will have that momentum. They'll carry on the momentum. That'll be their 5th straight win. So I think it'll be an uphill challenge for us to do it. So, like I said, I think the big game is against England. If we get the win against England, we're almost certain to qualify for the semi-finals.
Yeah,
You'd imagine I can't envision us beating England and then losing to USA.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and ultimately, we'll save it for when that game is coming, and it's very, very soon. But I'm with Santokie. If we beat England, I would treat that England game almost as if it's the World Cup final itself.
Yeah.
If we beat England, we are going to the semi-finals, because we will beat USA if we beat England. But you know what? First things first, we got Afghanistan. We'll see how many changes are made. We'll see if there's any kind of subplots that come out of that Afghanistan game. But fundamentally, people, we're through to the Super 8s. We ready. West Indies are up. Caribbean Cricket Podcast will be back a lot of times over the forthcoming week, given there's about 1 million games going on. But final words to you, Santokie.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like we said at the top of the show, Mash, it's been a while since we've been in a clutch moments of a World Cup. So, it's something to savor. Whether it goes well for us, whether we crash out, at least, it's been a good ride so far in the World Cup. Hopefully we can continue to the semi-finals. But I think at this stage, everything's so finely balanced and based on small margins. You don't know what's going to happen. As you said, keep out for the content. We're going to be almost doing daily content just because of the flurry of matches coming out. Mash, you're back tomorrow, right, with the infamous live call-in show?
Live call-in show tomorrow. So anyone who's looking for us to do a who would you pick versus Afghanistan, you can do that in the live call-in show. We're not going to do a separate video for that. Just come on the live call-in show if you want to talk about that. And yeah, Santokie says, obviously, the 3 games are all coming up this week. Just before we go, like, share, subscribe. Didn't say it at the beginning, saying it right at the end. You can find us on all of the handles you can see at the top of the screen: Instagram, X, TikTok, Patreon, Discord, Facebook, website www.caribbeancricketpodcast.com. And if you'd like to support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, you can go to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket for as little as $1 of whatever your currency is. I've been Machel St. Patrick Hewitt. That's been Santokie Nagilendran. We've been the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. We'll see you soon for some forthcoming episodes.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rules seem coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.